Working? Working? Oh, yep, looks like it. I hear it. Helps if you unmute. Okay. Hello, mister. How you doing? It's funny. I've streamed for a long time. I've been streaming for about 7 or so years. Obviously not with some breaks in there, but even after all this time, I still failed to get set up properly. Hello, maybe. How you doing? Yeah. Only just letting the world burn, putting last in for. Eesh. Hello. Oh, you don't count. Okay. So what is boy? Um. Okay. So I am going to say hopefully finish up the refactor of the planning item stuff on the view side, so I can get rid of. I want to get all the changes done so that I don't leave them half implemented. It does mean that it's not going to be the most entertaining thing because I'm just going to be renaming and testing that I haven't broken everything. But at the same time, it's important stuff. That's that one. I think the hamsters are a bit tired today. So somewhere in my process, I've lost the ability to sort out restream, and StreamerBot is so bad that it won't connect to Twitch properly, no matter what permissions I give it. I've logged out, logged back in, tried to give permissions, reinstalled it, and all sorts. It won't connect to Twitch, so I can't see the Twitch chat. It will connect to YouTube. That's kind of quiet anyway. I end up looking over here for Twitch chat and up there for that's the cameras. See, and buddy is good, but the microphone is going to be right on my chin. Apologize if you're scratching. Let me know. Okay, so that's up and running. We have Kaizu started. I don't think I missed anything. I decided to just stream with the same settings every day. Um, I don't have the time for that. I'm not playing around with other people's bots, setting up stuff. So no, it'll be what it'll be. Um, I don't fancy resurrecting my bot code either. So. Yesterday we got rid of the planning items finally, so now we have the backlog of deliverables, and we have the notifications panel in. Again, this isn't really working. Well, it is saving data on the back end. It is saving parameters, etc. But they're not fully implemented because I was kind of mid doing this when I stopped streaming last time. Um, The idea is the fields that you can watch will be in this list. And so if you want to watch the status, the assigned to, the project it's attached to, the potentially even the risk, although the risk being a dynamic calculation will make that a little harder. And we might have to review that later. So if something goes high risk, maybe that might be more of a report of what is currently high risk. We'll tackle that long down the line. So again, I've set my MVP sites on when I can track a project in this application or initiatives through initiative, through to planning, to implementation, and then to delivery. Once I can do that in potentially the most basic way possible, that is when this is good enough to say, yeah, I'm happy to let other people use it. Um, and then I'll be able to use that for teams, etc. So um, yeah, and everything else is just add-ons. So I've been trying to think very hard about what do I really want to achieve to say this can go live. So we have some progress made here, but right now, what I need to do is go through and rename all of the planning item based stuff in this side of the house. So yesterday, not running. One downside to having no running example system as well is I can't demo it to people as they come in. So you just kind of see some code refactorings. So we've just started the job of renaming the view side of things. Obviously, there's a little bit more here than just uh, the tables. There's actually the views as well. And once I start this process, it's going to be very destructive. So let's, before I commit to doing that, let's go and change the shared kernel piece of the event. So planning item integration event becomes deliverable integration event, right? And that's fine. Fine. And the other items. So the project looking for planning item. Okay, that's not bad. We have deliverable there. Oh, gotta do it. That is a system event that we'll test that one. So that is on the service. So that starts to change more than just that piece. Dan, hello. How you doing? How have you been? Back finally. Hope you are well. Okay, so we've renamed the events. So that will mean that when this publishes events now, they'll come in to here into the receivers. You can see the planning item receiver now receives a deliverable integration event. Um, I'm not going to rename. Am I going to rename? Am I blurry? Too bad, I don't think. The light level probably means the camera won't do as good a job. Well, unless it's the actual screen that's blurry, in which case then I've got a problem. But yeah, my face is just for, break up the visual monotony. Sons, hello. How you doing? Um, okay. So how do I do this? To do this properly, know that I've changed things. So the way that this the receivers work, or the publishers even, they pull their configuration from console, which is just used as a key value store in this case. So wherever I store it, I could use Redis, I could use all sorts of other stuff to store key value, right? And it just pulls the configuration in from uh, go go here, localhost 500. So the configuration comes from here, right? So when the application starts up, it pulls this dictionary off and gets the event type that we're trying to subscribe to, and then goes and correlates that to a name. So the publishing works that way, and etc. I go to this UI. Right? Go to this UI. This is the list of topics. So in Kafka, when you want to configure your system, you can't. I could start it up and have it publish, and it would go to a topic with one sets of one replication with one um, partition, which for my dev system is perfectly fine. But you do want to hand create these. So I'm trying to consider how this might look. I can create the topics, that's fine. I don't replay these anyway right now, so that's fine. What I need to do is do I do a rename at this point on here, or do I still call these Liquid Sky? Because that's the project. The name of the product is Kaizu. The code, the project name can still be Liquid Sky because it's irrelevant. Let's keep that naming. Liquid Sky deliverables. Again, partitions. Partitions give you scale out on Kafka topics. So if you want many consumers, you want to increase the number of partitions because then you can serve up the data. You can also organize data into partitions, so you can distribute your the load appropriately. But you do need to make it a strategy. You can't just make it a guess. For 7 days, it will delete messages. Partition. I don't. Let's actually set that to. I do have many consumers, but it doesn't. That doesn't really matter because the partitions are the replication that's there. Yeah, let's do 3. So create liquid sky deliverables. That now will go there. Now what we need to do is change here. Want to go to our planning item. Now these are not planning item integration events. These are deliverable integration event, and we're going to go to liquid sky deliverables, and that will now do what I wanted to do. And actually, that's the only partition that really change at this point because everything else is the data within all the other events that's going to change, not that. So when I save that, though, I need to export that now because I need that configuration to be uh, 'cause, 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 ' So the way I do this is when I start up the system, I um, I I import that. So once I start up a fresh console system, I import that configuration. So I store that configuration in the repo. I just need to know how to export console KV get backup. So I need to go in console brain. So if I do, this is going to be a little simpler. Console KV get uh, configuration. What, really? That's not it. That's not it. It's a not that. If I go to the prereqs, fleet. Where's fleet? Fleet so would that make sense? Open. Yes. Liquid Sky is still in my prototypes folder. Still trying to figure out if it's really a thing. But when I import console, creation for I run this console KV import snapshot.json. That is copied from here. So you see that is not the same thing I just did. So how do I? Oh, there we go. Like I've already thought of this. Um, Laura. There now. Place that one. Oh, what is that? Okay, that's not what I expected. It. Git. But will that change? Will that change? Interesting. Save that. Okay, so that's at least committed. That has the always the way that's the way it always is. Um, okay, let's rename deliverable receiver. Yeah, I do the singular. So we receive the deliverable, we update deliverable, um, planning item in. Then we go into here, and we're going to need to rename this object in a minute. Planning item. So this is more of a classical entity framework data store. I mean, I am using repositories still. I'm using Adash repositories, but these are just straight up. We don't need to do anything special with them. They're not entities as such, like they are on the other side of the system. That's fine. We do determine whether it's changed because if if things are the same, or the thing we've just sent in is older than the one we've got, then we ignore it. Um, Record can be made. That's like out into the deliverable. Okay, so that's planning item, um, deliverable by identify back. Then this planning item here, this needs to be renamed in line with the database, but deliverable. Oof, that has a bit more of a knock on. It knows they're associated, created, full dependence. Deliverable, planning item, deliverable ID. Whoa, 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 whoa. Pendant. Oh. Oh, because this is a linking table. Pendant. This table is A to B. Yeah. That worries me. That's what I thought. Main. Oh, that's not good. I don't want to do a mass um, replace on planning item because I'll end up with more things I've not checked on. Like there, I just let myself go back into another part of the system and change that part. So that's not really what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be a little bit more deliberate about my actions. Planning item, deliverable, this needs to be deliverable, type, or this is giving me the other tables that I need to hit when I change this, right? So associated projects, all these different tables, etc., are going to need to be renamed, and subsequent columns. Okay, that's that. The view side, a lot more planning item stuff because there is a lot of different spins on the view. That build. YouTube. Like, okay. Okay. Duplicate. Oh, oh yeah. Dependent deliverable ID. Acquire planning item. So this is so acquire is a create if not exists behavior. Right. Oh yeah, I need to. So this will, for the purpose of data integrity, when you receive an event from Kafka, you may or may not have received the associated data at this point. So to make sure the system aligns properly, the acquire pattern is there so that it will create the dummy record. But the very worst, you'd see nothing, but the data would be intact. Um, it's not something I have to generally worry about right this second, but it is something worth having there um, when the system is a little bit busier because a single topic might be slightly busier than another. So if I'm creating a lot of stuff and then let's say I'm creating a lot of planning items and someone goes to associate something, but the associate queue is much smaller than the planning item queue, that association might come in to the view side of things and be made before the actual planning item has made it there. So what this does is make sure that the system remains intact while the other data catches up. It won't if you try and see the planning item, you won't find anything because you couldn't search it because there's text for it, etc. But you will be given um, the system won't break entirely. That data is not lost, and eventually it will be consistent. Deliverable ID. Um, Deliverable dependencies by owner spec. This is a clear out of the associated records and insert. It, it's from the when the integration event happens, it's just cleaner to have. Yes, it's a lot of churn, but it's quicker to just say we're updating this. We've got something to tell you to update this. Therefore, wipe out what you have and let's replace it. Um, not used a whole. Not used. Not, let's not have code lying around that has lies in it. Update deliverable attachments. So this would be associated attachment. No, this would be receiver. Uh, update deliverable, update planning item attachment, update for attachment. Let's see. Mentioned in there. We have a quiet one today. Go in here, deliverable identifier, stuff now, update, keep planning item requirement, eat. I know this is something that I could definitely have a tool do. I could do a mass find and replace. Sometimes going through this stuff, review it. Or identifier. Uh, Deliverable ID. Done. Okay. The painful point is going to come in a minute when I actually have to go through and rename all the tables. Integration stuff. So if we go in here, retro, we say planning item. Not doing too bad. We've only got 11 mentions of planning item now. So deliverable identifier. My deliverable. What, really? I went through this one. I clearly didn't. The fact that I'm saying that suggests that we've got a lot of overlapping behavior. That's fine. All fine. Ooh. Update comment. Right now, you can only comment on a planning item. But I feel like that's going to change. But I'm not going to change that preemptively. It's not able to do such a deliverable ID. Comment of that change. Deliverable ID. This is not a small change. 66 files. Yeah. Putting event changes. Okay. Back to here. Do Control F. We have no mentions of planning item. Okay. Now we do good. So we've got in the view, we got the rename the tables, planning items and planning items. Dependencies, sorry. Those are those two. We have nothing else planning item focusing table. View, we have 4 planning item views. Can you do new exec rename on a view? What, for me to look disgusted at my own code? Morning, Dot. How's it going? Let's try. Exec, SP rename, planning item, and view to deliverable. Yes, not wrong. It work. Use. It does. Okay. Paste that in there. Statistics. View. I did a 15-minute walk. That's better than a 0 minute walk. When I finish the stream, I'm gonna take Loki out. I had to play Earthshake this morning, so I lost the Dota too. Excusable. uh, ad starts in 3 minutes. So I know this is not the most riveting content. It is pretty boring to watch, but it is stuff that I need to do. And rather than what I could have done here is I could have made the justification that it's only the data in the back end. So as long as as long as the front end, does what I want it to do, who cares, right? I can just leave everything behind and just say, oh well, that when you see planning item, it means deliverable, right? But as I go forward, that's going to become more and more disgusting to deal with and difficult to deal with in terms of mental model. Oh, planning item dependencies. Oh, because I already renamed that one. That's fine. And did the others rename then? What did that all cause? Yes, that all. Refresh it. What? Planning item statistics, deliverable statistics. Refresh. Oh, oh, oh. Oh, I didn't call it statistics view. That's why. I called it that. The views. Um, where there's an overlap with a thing, I've kind of used the word view. Where there's not, I've used because view is redundant in views, right? It's just a redundant term. However, when it's overlapped with the actual table, because I use the views to expose the data for GraphQL, because then you don't have there's no write permissions set up there. So even if you manage to do mutate in GraphQL, you do you nothing good because you never have access to the actual write model of the database. And the view allows me to consolidate information and represent what the view will see. It's a strategy. It works, but it means that when I don't have an alternate table, I don't use the word view on the end. So let's stick with that for now. I'm not sold on that, but we'll see. I don't like using the views anyway, but it's a pattern for again me exposing the data. This was kind of my compromise for using GraphQL and bringing the DB context right up to GraphQL. The speed, it works. For blurring the lines of the layering, not a fan. But I get why, because you can't. I don't know of any way at this point of exposing that iQueryable behavior in an abstract manner and still having all the still having all the brain projection stuff work. It kind of needs to work on the. Okay, so they're all reading to deliverables. So now we've got that script saved. Now need to. In my case, what I do is, I join the information that's relevant for the client to see, right? So this view might not. So projects don't look identical. In this case, they actually do, but they shouldn't do. Ah, there you go. So the tenant ID is an identifier on that one, an ID. So the internals of the database aren't exposed either. Yeah. So for me, the goal here is very much to expose something that will require less manipulation and less joins, because the view does the joins for me, so that the information I'm presenting is easier to digest on the GraphQL side. But now I need to go through all these tables. We got rename the columns. We got to start with the column. Associated attachments, business justifications, changes, comments. That's planning item ID. Captured that one. Do these. Much easier to manage. Comments, gives permission, planning item dependencies, planning item dependencies. This will be renamed by this change here. That will be deliverable dependencies. Planning items will be projects. That's no planning item. Requirements does have a planning item. Requirements. Okay. Now these are IDs again. These are not identifiers. The identifiers are what is publicly exposed. The IDs are the internal links between tables. So it's the primary key columns of these. So the requirement ID in the view is not the same as the requirement ID in the planning side of things. However, the requirement identifier is identical. It means that I can recreate the database and drop the database and still have primary key columns that are able to be referenced. Yeah. But that doesn't have that. That doesn't have tasks. Print ID. Tasks are project. Hold on, why doesn't task has requirement ID? Okay, so tasks belong to a requirement, or tasks can be standalone. Tasks don't have any that no direct association with a planning a deliverable. They're just associated to why are they there? And then this is a bit. I'm going to have all user stuff. So those are the four columns that get renamed there. Okay. ID. The views, that's going to be harder. Modify view. Deliverables. The deliverables. Deliverables. I'm laughing because recently I've kind of flip flopped to using the left, the joining table on the left and the table on the right, and I've had a discussion about it, and I clearly not being consistent on that. It's fine. Doesn't really matter. Able to resolve delivery. Not rename the table yet. They've not renamed the table yet. Fluffy, hello. How you doing? I am working on my project management platform, project management and planning platform, named Kaizu, which I love to show you, but I am able to at this point. I'm currently doing a mass rename of a bunch of data. Um, looks kind of like that. As long as I don't refresh, we're fine. Um, project management, the way I think it can benefit developers, product teams. Aren't you worried that your product could be easily reverse engineered? Oh, hello, Turbofish. No, it doesn't. The effort it would take to go through and decompile it and reconstitute the actual code. Well, because C sharp is JIT, right? So the IL is produced and you can reverse it right from IL. You don't have to. Um, you don't get a compilation same way you do with C++ or whatever. Way decompilation is much harder. Pretty okay. Been doing it for over 20 years, so it's not bad. I've made a career on it. IL Spy, yeah. The code is only part of it, though. Yeah, if someone gets hold of the DLLs, yeah. The code is only part of it. You still have to understand how it's built and why it does it what it does and all the technology in there. Still tens of thousands of lines of code to read through and understand. So no, it doesn't bother me at all. And it's the same if someone builds a site in Python or builds a site in PHP or builds a site in any language, you get hold of the source code some way. It's yeah. So yeah. You are just as much at risk with other languages in different ways. So, but it's fine. I use C sharp because I have been doing um, I've been doing this, like I said, been a developer for over 25 years. I've been using C sharp for most of that career. It's somewhere I'm comfortable. I can build a lot of things with it. I can do pretty much everything I need to do, and if I don't, I can learn. The full stack is possible for me. C sharp's also not a hard language to learn. From a productivity perspective, you can get up and running relatively quick. Yes, it's a Microsoft technology, which comes with some stigma, but I think it's really inspiring to watch in some security. Nice. Yeah, I think um, so. I have tested the waters on the language. It's not like I don't. It's not like I'm like, oh, C sharp's the only language, right? I have done PHP. I have done Ruby. I have done. I've not done much C++, but I have written C++. Right? It's and I've done Pascal, and I've done all the language, all sorts of the languages. Java's the only one I've never really picked up and tried to build anything serious with, but I have tried to use it. Um, but at the end of the day, it's not. If you go in for employment, you obviously use the language you use there, and I feel that you owe it to yourself and your employer to be proficient as you can. So for me, building that skill set in C sharp, giving myself the tools I need in C sharp, I've still got a lot of the techniques. I can still take these techniques to other things, right? It's not that I don't have the ability. I can. That that's my experience. So um, yeah. Um, and good morning, Rambling Geek, or good afternoon. Well, so for me, C sharp is um, where I am. Apex, good morning. Thank you very much for 25 months. Very much appreciate that. Um, Rust, etc. But for the most part, coding is coding. Well, yeah, it's the concepts of the language, and then there's obviously the idiomatics, right? There's things that do because of the language, is the style of the language, because the design of the language fits better, and some languages work better. The way I'm building this platform is I can build any single one of these components out in any language I want to, as long as they have libraries for interacting with the components that I need. So if I want to build a Rust processor, or I want to build a C++ website, I still have that option available to me, um, because of the design of the system. It's not one big application. It's a big application with many parts. Um, so it's you have options. Me, I'm building something and I know C sharp well. Why not use C sharp? I don't want to make. I've got enough to learn and contemplate doing the code, let alone trying to learn extra concepts on top. So if you're trying to do so, if you're trying to build something from scratch and you want to build something, but you also choose to pick a new language to do it in, you're making both things harder than they need to be. So if you're comfortable in a language and you know how to get the best out of that language, now build something, because you don't have to do double duty on the learning. You can worry about the concepts and the design and the structure and the interactions more, because you understand how the language achieves those things. So that's the way I would handle that. So what I'm doing right this second is I've just done a mass refactoring of um, a concept within the system. I'm going through and renaming tables and columns. Um, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a little bit. That's fine. Um, yeah, that was my argument when my old boss wanted to try a different ID than Visual Studio. So there's enough to learn without adding more. It, yeah, yeah. Um, I'd say an IDE is it can be confusing, and I don't think it should be forced. I think it should be a personal choice. I think you should be able to be comfortable. Again, it's a tool, right? An IDE is a tool, um, and yeah. Well, hello, welcome in. How's it going? Yes, I am. I am back to streaming. I am streaming 3 days a week, Mondays and Thursdays, 7 a.m. will 8:30, and Wednesdays 6 to 9 p.m. Any coding strategies? Coding strategies. What do you mean strategies? You mean like advice in terms of writing code, or um, best advice for writing code is write code, write more code. Accept that the code you have written is not going to be the best. Keep writing more code. How do I pull the deliverable ID in there? Oh, because I probably joined on this. Verify that before I'd rather modify the view. View. This is the most confusing piece of code, or set of code I have ever written. Associate attachment. Fine. Get feedback on the code. Take the feedback. Not even get feedback on the code. Write a lot of code. Solve problems. Do things. Ignore planning item. Ignore. What? I'm confused on this, because this is the GraphQL side. This is exposing. Um, I link the planning item, or the deliverable in this case now. Design patterns, don't try and apply. Just learn how to write code. And as you read about design patterns, some of the things you've written will make sense. They'll click, and use that method of designing of learning design patterns. Um, uh, yeah, don't try and read up on a design pattern and then try and make code fit. Write the code the way that you understand it, and then when you read a design pattern, it, once you understand the code, you'll understand how it can be applied differently, and then you can experiment with that. And that's how I'd try and get into design patterns. Um, Again, I'm a big fan of write more code. You and I will both write code, but we will not write the same code. We will not design the same code. We will not think the same way. So if you're working on your own, who cares what your code looks like, right? Write the code that makes sense to you, but be willing to change it, right? Don't just think of it as a thing that can't be changed. Don't be scared of changing that code. Learn to refactor, learn to change the code and get into that habit. And then when you do find design patterns and apply them, it will be much easier to actually figure out how to do it and make the change. But do make the change, yeah. Maybe not quite. In seriousness, it takes a long time to realize where design patterns fit, where they don't. Sometimes I don't go at things with design patterns. I go at things with solving the problem, and then the patterns appear or they don't. And yeah, mediator is, all joking aside, is kind of um, it's used extensively through this project because it solves my problems, right? Maybe not quite strategy, but anytime I start a new project, I find myself taking pages and pages of notes on what I think I'm supposed to do before I ever write any code. And build a mental framework of how to accomplish my. It'll teach me to type before my second cup of coffee. I figured notes. um, but one aspect of that is you've got to be careful you don't over design, right? Um, what differentiating between what it needs to do and what you might want it to do, and working on the what it needs before you worry about the what you want it to do, and not accounting, because again, code will evolve, right? It will change, its shape, its naming. It's like, again, I'm renaming an entire concept right now. You are using other patterns as well. Middleware is pipes plus filters for example. Any controllers is no controllers in there. I think it was fun to develop, but we are focused in Python scripting, networking. Yeah, I think that style of programming as well doesn't lend itself to refined design. It lends itself to more chaotic exploration as well. So the coding style and the structure you have doing that sort of stuff might not be quite the same. And game design, again, game design doesn't structure the same way as application design. It's a completely different discipline essentially. I guess it could be scope, singleton, the lifetimes of .NET. Yeah, controller. I don't use controllers, but they're not singletons. They're scoped. So I mean, yeah, just code, write code, have fun with code. Yeah, I don't do well with game dev. Is the more I'm a big fan of separation of concerns, and being able to break things down into small pieces. Whereas game design really doesn't work that way, and no one who I've watched code who I consider to be really great coders are has actually proven me anywhere near wrong on that one. So decorators are used pretty heavily. A lot of the libraries are in. You're talking about my code now specifically, or just in general? There's a lot going on in this code. for as small as it is. Okay, so I'm doubting myself on this one, but I don't want to change that right now. I need to make these different. Um, let's script that equal script clipboard. Um, I need to. What I'm doing here is I'm trying to um, um, associate attachment. Uh, alter. I think it's time. That's going to break a lot. Um, maybe not. Maybe not. Okay, so associated attachments done. Um, yeah. What if I view as I need? Oh, because I've got multiple command pattern as well. I don't know if the interaction between PDAs commands can be the pattern. Decorators in place. Yeah. Um, again, I don't look at code and I probably see patterns, but I don't try and consider the names of those patterns. I'm not Patterns are a good point for discussion. And if I was discussing this with another developer more on point of the patterns, then probably I would make an effort to understand the actual patterns in play throughout the system so we could label them. That's where having design patterns available to you is a useful language, um, so that you can. It's the ubiquitous language of the design, right? Um, but yeah, I don't. Ah, I'm going to update Mojo today and let him know that I clearly am a liar. Is clearly. Oh, don't hit escape. It's not like I'm a Vim user. Why am I hitting escape? It's less an active thinking thing. I don't write code and think I use command pattern here. I'm more likely to write a bunch of code and go, this could be a command pattern implement. The latter doesn't happen a ton. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, write the code, write the code that makes sense, write the code that stays clean for you, and then when you see a pattern, it'll stick out. Deliverables. D. Do not hit escape. D. Deliverable ID. D. Save. And that works again. That's validation that the views actually do what to do. Don't need it. Clipboard associated projects. View associated projects view. So um, it should be pretty obvious at this point anyway. But thank you for the follows, Turbofish and Fluffy, by the way. Um, this stream is not about me being productive. If you have questions, thoughts, opinions on what you see, or you want to discuss more stuff in general in terms of software development and coding in general, I am happy to discuss. So you do not need to feel that you are disturbing me. Um, this code is not open source. This code is um, only shared with a few people for the purpose of learning. But I don't open source the code. Um, I do have open source projects, and they are on my GitHub, which I believe is linked below. And there are several components to this that are shared. The outbox, the mediator stuff, they are open source pieces. Saga behaviors, they are all open source behavior libraries. I do like to share as much, but Liquid Sky itself is not open source. Or Kaizu, not Liquid Sky. Liquid Sky was code name. Yeah, the concept of Kaizu is that you have four phases, from the seed of an idea in the business's head to uh, identifying what the requirements of those initiatives are, then going through to implementation, and then finally delivering those changes. And that's kind of the four stages of my platform. This phase is the deliverables phase. This is defining what we want to build. Um, yes, right now I do. This will go to more scrutiny. There's a lot of unit tests. I do use unit tests quite extensively. There's some 466 unit tests right this second. Some of these might fail right this second. I haven't run these yet. So I use extensive unit testing. As the project matures, I will be moving to more integration testing stuff, building out um, more solid implementation tests is going to be necessary. Integration tests, and I have been experimenting on the front end with end-to-end tests, um, using AI on the front end to help me. But there are a set of now end-to-end tests being run on the front end. So the client project is independent of backend server. So all this code is not in here. This is all backend behavior. They will automate the test on Kaizu. I don't know. Maybe that's a future thing. But um, the reason I'm building this is I have my own opinions on how this should be done, how this should, yeah, how this should be done. And I don't like the fluid and flexible nature of platforms like Jira. I think they are too focused on trying to capture every potential twist a business might make, trying to plan software development. I feel that I have my own say on it. So, people fired. So, right now, this is a project that's about 18 months in the making, um, with some breaks in there. It, you can build an initiative, you can build deliverables, you can ask out the deliverables, you can get to implementation. My my MVP will be when I can go through all phases, all four phases, to this. So initiatives, I'm about to start some work. Once I've got this piece done, start moving towards some initiative planning stuff with integrating with local LLMs to try and do some work there to try and figure out, hey, what are your actual requirements, and help you dig into what are you trying to build here. I've found that actually very useful from the perspective of this, is being able to have that back and forth, um, kick into the um, um, get into the details that another human might not even do. Because one of the things the machines won't do is necessarily make assumptions. So if you tell them to be um, critical, it will be more critical and dig in. And I've had a bit of pushback on some things that have helped me really solidify some ideas. So the idea will be that initiative planning, you can use AI and build out those initiatives and then generate the planning work, the deliverables that you're trying to define from that, build forward there. So why isn't it a independent identifier? I'm renaming this. I'm not, the test's failing still, so I'm clearly still doing something wrong. Um, so that's not like trying to push back the tide with a spoon. I'm not. Oh, expected to add it. Why did you fail? Try deliverable. Either I renamed a variable incorrectly here. That test was definitely passing yesterday. I've clearly broken it in this. Try deliverable identifiers deployable. We're expecting to add that. Not doing. Debug. I have view delta in the back of my head when I'm doing unit testing now, in that you don't like that debugging seems wrong, and I hold off on it as much as possible. And I think that's helped my discipline with the unit testing a little bit, in that I question right up until the point I do that. I think it's pretty cool with Azure DevOps, so you can set up an environment tested deployment attribute. Yes, yeah, that will be for the integration testing. I'm using GitHub to do deployments and stuff. That will be part of the flow eventually. Run through an entire set of tests and integration tests on push to release. I'm definitely heading in that direction. I do have an entire other project of deploying this application. So this application is, you see, it's 95 projects. It deploys to some 18 services right this second, not including the front end. There's many technologies going on, so there's 18 services, but there is Kafka, Consul, SQL Server, MongoDB, RabbitMQ, all in the back as well to do the deployment of messaging. Yeah. Wanted to try GitHub, but I haven't got time for it. Yes, time is always a problem. Okay, so deliverable ID. Yeah. Existing. That depends. That's not going to help me. Can't. 10025. So when you're using our Dallas repositories, the save changes async, the save changes, the context is in. You don't need to explicitly call it. When I was first designing things, I was like, I don't like the idea that I have to have save changes. If you don't want that to actually commit to the database immediately, you wrap it in a transaction, it will flush later. So it's the validation here off on. Dribble ID and a deliverable. What am I missing? That's exactly what it's done. Dependencies are added. Expected to get a call. Received one non-matching call. What? Oh, I'm nuts. If only reading were a thing. There we go. Okay. Okay, where was I? Comments. You. That has planning item identifier, so that doesn't need to change. And that needs to be deliverables. Sorry, it's amusing me that I'm inconsistent. That's not deliverable ID. deliverable. Okay, that. Let's just go. What the doing this with a view means that this join, if that deliverable didn't exist for any reason, this record wouldn't come out. I wouldn't be able to find that record. Um, this particular one is SQL Server. I will, over the next couple of months, shift to Postgres, when you put it as, because I do plan to push this to um, a Kubernetes that I do want to make commercial eventually, right? So, um, at which point I'm not licensed to server, so I will have to move to Postgres. But SQL Server is what this is built on because SQL Server is what I know overall. I also do use MongoDB, so there's a lot of NoSQL. Well, so things like changes are tracked through here, the outbot stuff for the changes. So I haven't shown this. I probably should show this. It gives a little bit more scale to what Liquid Sky, Kaizu. Sorry, I've only recently just started using the name Kaizu. Um, I rebranded everything last couple. Um, drawings, architecture, overview. This is the project overall. Um, so you can see I've got Redis over here. Um, these transforms and pipelines use MongoDB. The communications over here use somewhat Mongo and use to give a very simple example where MongoDB is. When I'm not when I'm not actually using relational data, so I'm using Mongo in terms of I have a snapshot of an object and I want to do a comparison and I want to capture the output. And those snapshots don't have necessarily um, the same types, the same objects. So I can still store them in a database that I can look them up by their identifier, but I don't need to worry about their their shape changing. Um, be more general about that data. Whereas with a relational DB, you are kind of, you know, essentially a blob. Yeah, but you still have the speed of lookup on the query of the identifier, etc. So it is index data, right? So that's why I'm using Mongo there. So when each of these systems publishes their changes, because they're independent systems that all get consolidated down into one view, right? So the planning requirements, etc., they change rather than have the planning component say, hey, by the way, here's all the things that changed about me, because those changes might be consolidated down. Like you might need to know about the name of something attached, right? The file name of an attachment or the tasks associated with a planning item, etc. You might need to know that. So this system kind of consolidates those changes together and then publishes out a change that makes more sense to the rest of the system. So um, these have processes in them um, collecting this information and calculating changes and then publishing them out so that the rest of the system can listen. Those changes get sent down to the view so you can actually see. I've not got that view right now. I need to replace it, but you can go and see what changed on an object with context of the data rather than just IDs. And then the notification system picks those changes out and says, oh, does anyone care about these things? I'll tell them. Right. So the system is very much um, event driven. This is the project we're looking at right this second in design. There's also a backend component called Control Tower, which is for client management, system management as a whole. So subscriptions, etc., would be managed out of that. Alter view about there again. I like calling it Why not done the not? Okay. Um, in the cards below, there is a link to Discord. If anyone's interested, you are more than welcome to join the Discord. I hang out in there quite a bit as well. So if you like to chat about software, let's out and talk about it. Can't guarantee the conversation will always be software, but it will. Or if you just want to ask questions, Annie, 25 months. Thank you very much for the sub. Very much appreciated. I like call name. Hey. Oh, thing that. Use class dot view. How you doing, Kenny? There we go. Okay. USA. Okay. So we made progress. We got some naming done. Fine. No worries. Totally get that one. Uh, totally get that one. However, unfortunately, due to my new work hours, I end the stream here. So I'm sorry that you have only just managed to make it in. But I will be returning on Monday. We'll have got a lot more of this done, and hopefully by that point, hopefully by Monday, I've got to be careful because this weekend is my wedding anniversary. I don't want to be planning too much dev over the weekend. But hopefully by Monday, I'm at a point where I can say the deliverables refactor is completely done. We have um, everything in there ready. And we can move to the next phase, which will be to play with local LLMs. So I need to get a couple of machines set up the next couple of days to be able to get some local LLMs installed, and then we will interacting with them in terms of initiative. Yeah. So initiatives, again, adding more detail to these, adding more behavior. So there'll be stakeholders and there'll be leaders of the initiatives, and there'll be a flow of design. But I've still yet to figure out some of the design on that. But ultimately, you'll be able to say, hey, I want to create a new initiative. Here's what I'm aiming for, and let's start a discussion and have AI kind of help you out with the idea fetching. And ultimately, I want to look at vector databases, pull in existing work from the company so that the system can be more intelligent about saying, hey, by the way, you've got that requirement already. You covered on this one, and kind of save you some time there. So yeah, that will sadly be me today. I will be around in Discord, but so let's. Did you actually start up, Stony? Are you in a space to stream or fail? Get started. Fail to get. Told you I was only going for an hour and a half. Okay, if you're going to be up in a minute, then I will or wait you out. I have a doggo to take for a walk as well. No, you don't. I'm done. I told you my stream schedule changed. I've got to get off now. So, ooh, no stamina. I kind of like the job thing. The job thing is kind of nice. Responsibilities, man. Um, okay. Yeah, the refactoring of this has taken my time. It's not something I wanted to be doing on stream, but I think it is also an important fact. And like I've said on the stream title, right, the product dev in public, I do plan to build this as a real product, right? So I'm treating this as if I would a real project, with the exception of deadlines, right? I'm not setting myself any unrealistic goals. Um, what does the collaborate do? I want to raid. I don't want to collaborate. What does the collaborate do? You go live? um, Now 909. Well, today in the stream, I was trying to do a major refactoring of a concept within my system. I've been going through SQL tables, I've been going through code, doing the refactoring, making sure unit tests run, all in the aim of getting my project to be um, up and running properly again. Yeah, use a collab for multi-world randomizer. Huh. Interesting. Well, start your stream, Stone Eagle, and we will raid. But if you're not, then need to go and raid because I need to go and take a dog for a walk. So yeah, I'd be interested in doing that more. But again, my stream style and others don't really overlap, right? So okay. Well, Stoney's brought the stream up. But anyway, now 909. I do apologize for ending the stream right as you just come in. If you are interested, the stream is put to YouTube, so you can. There's a link in the card below, and you're more than welcome to go and check that out. There's also a Discord linked, so if you have questions on software development, if you have opinions you want to share on software development and whatnot, there is a Discord. So thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it. I will return on Monday. Yeah, we're going to go read Stony. Stony is building No Mercy, which is a media platform for content you own, so you can watch it like it is Netflix. He's been putting a lot of work in that, and it looks freaking amazing. I'll definitely go and check out Stony. Also building in C# and PHP and other languages where possible. So take care, all. Have a great rest of your day. Bye all.